Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Couple of Nerds. I'm your host, DnDWife, and with me is my co-host and husband, Dungeon Master Eguile.
How's it going, everyone?
With us, we also have our guest host, Entynk.
Oh, thank you.
Hello, welcome. And today's episode is going to be a Comic Cave segment. We're going to be talking, introducing the last character and member of the Travelers, A Portrait for Luna.
Mm-hmm.
Yay! We're finally done with all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we're just going to, briefly discuss a little bit of what we're going to cover. We're first going to talk about the inspiration for Luna, how she came to be, not just in Entynk's artwork, but in DnDWife's head as well, so that it could be translated into artwork. The fun details in the character art that were included that we really appreciate, and the techniques used in the artwork, see how that helped out as well. So I'm super excited to cover everything that we're going to look at for Luna. I feel like I've kind of forgotten a little bit about her because she's sort of the chronicler of things. She's not really in the forefront.
We're so used to her interviewing or being kind of like the mainstay, but now she gets the spotlight on her.
Absolutely. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, so what do you say now that you've done the whole group? What's kind of the next endeavor?
Oh, yeah.
Next endeavor, I want to do emotes since we've been spending so much time on Discord, and it's been a really nice collaborative thing. I want to really play with the extreme emotions we get out of these characters sometimes. Yeah.
That'll be super fun. I'm excited to see what they look like.
It's the end of an era now,
Yeah. We've got over that little bit hurdle, but I think the next is just improving what they look like if they get any crazy stuff.
Totally. Kind of
just upgrading them a little bit.
Since we've gotten so much into the story now, playing for a year now, get to kind of accentuate who they are and kind of go to the extremes, be a little sillier.
Absolutely. We can focus on some of the sillier moments in the campaign. But speaking of, inspiration and sort of what we draw from it, let's talk about a little bit of how Luna came to be inspired for the character project. What kind of was your points of inspiration for her?
I feel like with Elves, it's kind of obligatory to cite Tolkien, Lord of the Rings.
Absolutely.
I grew up on that. Especially at this point of the story, we're introducing her. She's on the boat. She's kind of playing it low key. Yeah. She's got her cloak over her dress, so we don't get to see too much of her personality through the style, even though we'll get to those fun details later.
Yeah.
But I really took inspiration from Tolkien's elves being kind of shrouded but still ornamental jewelry and
little
stuff.
Bits showing,
very elegant, very slender character, very she's kind of posh the way that she's played as well. So I kind of wanted to portray that. I recently saw The Mummy for the first time in theaters because I know.
Wow.
Good gravy. Took me long enough. But they had their special 25 year anniversary in the theaters. So I was so taken by Evelyn's character and the way she looks, and she's that academic, and so I really took points of inspiration from her.
Oh, I really like that because she's a favorite character of mine too. So I really appreciate that inclusion into sort of her character portrait. That was really nice.
Were there any other heroines? I know you read a lot of books. I'm not sure if you drew.
There were a few. I would say at least 2 heroines from books that I drew from that I really loved, and their sort of style is incorporated in the way that Luna dresses. Now this is more about what she wears under the cloak. But if I gave too much away, it would kind of give away who Luna is.
I think it would give a lot away.
We'll leave some to the imagination.
Yeah, right. But I do draw a lot of inspiration from the things that I read. I'm a big bookworm, and so a lot of those are from that. Even the previous campaigns have had inspirations from books that I just really appreciate and want to sort of incorporate into my characters.
That's awesome. Yeah. And as I'm sure we'll see more going forward, Luna really does take up that mantle. She's the elegant and inquisitive heroine of our story.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much. I like being the chronicler of everybody. And it's nice, I think it's important to have these influences in shaping Luna's character, and not just Luna's character, but the other characters that you've portrayed. Having these small details or these little bits of us and our inspiration in them that you bring out in the portraits, I think are really beautifully done. Not just for Luna's portrait, but the other ones as well. I've seen those little bits of personality in there that you bring out, and I really appreciate them.
I love that so much, just because I do feel lucky with the people that you guys have found for your table. And I think we talked about this in the Tobias episode.
We might have, yeah.
A little bit, because I can't help but see these players in their characters and the characters in the players, so I think that comes out through the artwork, and I'm glad that that's a positive.
Yeah, no, it really helps out, and it just, I think, draws us closer to the portraits as well, whoever shares that portrait with their player. And for those of us who aren't even, they're looking at somebody else's portrait, I think it's like, oh, I know where that comes from, I know where that ties in. So it's good conversation. Cool. Yeah. And not just the influences that we pull in from the sort of the things that we ingest in terms of media, but also things like real life, things that we use. For example, I have an actual headdress that I wear as a prop sort of to the table, to the sessions, and that you've incorporated into the portrait.
It was so inspiring. Because I love the dress up aspect. I have my own little hat with crocheted goblin ears.
And we have others joining the trend as well.
We've got some cat ears at the table. But it really was nice to see for one, your confidence in portraying that. And I feel like as a beginner, I took point on that because you can't help but get more into character with that. So I had to, for that to be your initial point of inspiration, I really wanted to keep that canon with Luna.
Oh, I really appreciate it, because the headdress was just sort of a way for me to get into the character. I just wanted it as a little prop for RP. But it's really nice to see that it has become sort of iconic of Luna as a character in the world.
Yeah, it's like her thing.
Yeah.
And mentioning iconic, we have a cameo from your guys' real life kitty cat.
Yeah, so the way I wanted to play my character in this new campaign was with a familiar, and I wanted that familiar to be something really important. So I picked my kitty, Jenks.
Our kitty, thank you.
Our kitty, but I really love him, so he's my baby.
We got some proud parents,
Yeah, he always joins us at the table, whether it's trying to steal snacks or seats.
Yeah, they're always there. We'd have two, but he's like the first, so I have like a little more of a connection with Jenks, and he was my first ever pet. So I really wanted him to be sort of immortalized in a campaign. And now he is. He's part of this new world of Extraeus. And I really love that you included him in my character portrait.
Absolutely. I feel like where she's at, how we know her at least, I won't give too much, but they only have each other. Yeah. So, they share a glance in the portrait because they have that connection that she hasn't really made with anyone else yet. Yeah. With the lack of memories or just being alone for so long, in her hermeticism. He's really solid. He's that companion for her, tried and true.
Yeah.
Which I do have to ask, as the DM, did you go through different personalizations for him, or how did you feel because he has a pretty iconic voice at the table?
I mean, the voice was her, the personality and everything was rolled for.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I wanted the personality to be more rough and tumble, so the voice is really reminiscent of that. He's very straight, give it to you, a little bit like Salem from from Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
That's kind of where I went with it.
A little bit like that. Yeah, he's got that same kind of witty personality.
A lot less head bobbing.
Yeah. A lot less, but yeah.
That's awesome. It really contrasts well with his and Luna's personalities, so they're good for each other.
Yeah, because she's very reserved, very clinical and scientific, and he's very much like, no. I'm going to call it straight.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But he's got
judgmental.
you.
Yeah. So he represents that kind of other side of her personality, really bringing her into reality, not just letting her kind of flit away into experimentation heaven. And I really like that it highlights the significance of including these personal touches in character portraits. It makes them more meaningful, more engaging. Like I said, not just for the people who the portraits are for, but for anybody who is either part of the campaign and knows what the character represents, or even someone who's seeing it for the first time and has no clue. You can always point and show them like, oh, this was included. This was really personal to me. It's a really wonderful conversation starter as well.
Absolutely.
And I think it also showcases your strengths as an artist, because you've done a really good job of putting all these personal touches into the portraits that tie us so closely to them, I think.
Thank you. I mean,
There's a little bit of everyone in everything.
Yeah.
absolutely. Like, that was the best advice that I ever got starting all of this with D&D, is that, you know, even with the most experienced players who want to get kind of out of the box with their characters, there's always a little bit of the person in there. You have to draw from something.
Yeah. Absolutely. And even if it's just us seeing ourselves reflected in those character portraits, are just, I think, phenomenal.
But that's the advantage, is we get to include fun things that, you know, about like what would we want in a magical setting. So we get to add the little fun, whimsical details that we don't get in real life. We get to pad our character with that.
Exactly. And talking about fun details, let's talk about a little bit of what we included in this character portrait as the fun details. I know that for you, a big point was the boots that you gave Luna.
I had with the cloak,
You don't have a lot to work with, right?
I wanted, like, that's why, like, I made her dress
good.
kind of like high with the choker, like connected to the choker, because I'm like, okay, like, I want to hint that there's something underneath this coat.
She's not naked.
Yeah, or like, I figure that like Luna is probably has the most cohesive sense of style in the group. So, you know, given multiple like details about her that I'm not sure I'm at will to say, but there's
That's for a different segment.
Yeah.
That's different things where she's probably compelled to have all custom tailored clothing. She's like very polished,
really
very
nice.
clean.
Yeah.
She wants those quality details.
Yeah,
I'm
being
really glad
comfortable is a big thing for Luna.
But I'm really glad that you liked the boots in particular, giving me very
look
Jane
lovely.
from Tarzan.
Yeah.
Very cute with the buttons.
Yeah, that was also another point of inspiration I think we should add to the tick right there.
Yeah.
Jane, I loved her boots. She's always been a favorite heroine of mine from like growing up. So I really appreciate this inclusion with Luna's boots as well. I mean, and they're really nicely done. You put detail into these things. They have stitching lines and they have buckles and buttons and all sorts of laces. They look gorgeous.
Like you
And
said,
we've seen that through like most of your expressions of the characters too. That there's fine details that express
in
personality.
every single one for each of the like unique things. So Luna's very much like a lonely traveler kind of person. So the boots you really put effort into. For Tobias, it was like the armor was a really big deal. So I know you added a lot of nice shine there and made it look really metallic and beautiful.
got that high contrast. Yeah, you gotta, I don't know, you gotta get the details where you can. And like sometimes in a like high texture piece, I guess you would say, like stuff that's more complicated, there's a lot going on. You want to draw the eye to something in particular.
Yeah.
But if there's not a lot going on, it's the same thing where it's like you want to embellish and you want the eye to be drawn to those little details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talked a lot in the last sort of episode about the prioritization of aesthetics over practicality in fantasy artwork, because it is a fantasy piece. You know, you can sort of play with the laws of physics and the laws of nature, but you also, I think, have to stay within a certain realm of reality. So I really like, especially reflecting the way that Luna approaches the world in a more practical and clinical way, that these boots are very practical as well. These sort of touches are very practical of her. She's wearing a cloak that's very good for traveling. Her boots are made for walking, you know.
Had to do it.
Gotta have that pun.
Obligatory.
But they're made for, you know, walking long distances and going through rough terrain. So I really appreciate that, those little touches of reality.
Because I played around with having it like, oh, like, does she even want like a heel or whatever? Because like I feel like Drexla could get away with it because like she's probably flying most of the time.
Yeah, she doesn't need to care about walking as much.
But like for someone who's like literally traveling, like, you know, great distances, like I had to give her the little heel.
Just
though.
the little heel, yeah.
I couldn't help it. But
can't go
like,
3-inch heels, but just like a little heel.
And even personality-wise, she's not gonna wear stilettos by any means.
She's not a stiletto girl.
Yeah. So I feel
she's
like
a librarian.
Exactly. But she's got to have the little extra oomph at the same time.
Yeah, little style there, and I really appreciate it too. But it really allows, I think, especially the fantasy setting that we're in, allows us to explore and implement those creative ideas really well without being bound by too many real world limitations.
Yeah, all the rules are pretty bendy.
Yeah, right? Like in a normal world, you wouldn't really have a cat that's like gazing at you with intelligence in its eyes per se. Like, I love Jenks, but we don't talk to each other and we don't have conversations.
But now, wish you could.
I wish.
But now, like exactly, you guys get to kind of project that your interpretation of your little furry baby over here. Like, you get to kind of showcase and give him more life in that sense.
Give him more of a character. So yeah, sure, maybe not in IRL. I can have conversations with him, but every time I'm in Extraeus, I have my little buddy I can talk to. So that's really nice to have included in there as well. Just other character details I think that I really appreciated, like we were talking about, you've included little details for all of us, and I think a part of that also includes that pop of color that you give all of us. For Luna, it's in the eyes, because that's where her power originates, so it's very much coming from there, and that's where you give her a lot of personality. So I think that also is one that I really like too. And I think you also mentioned maybe tying that purple hue to Jenks as well, just to kind of tie them together.
Yeah, I remember double checking with you to be like, if you guys have different color eyes, or if he's got the same streaks in his hair that you would.
He's a completely black cat, but his eyes would glow, I think, in the same manner.
Especially since, like, if I understand it correctly, like, he is an extension of you and your magic. So that totally makes sense narratively as well. I think it looks really cool with you guys gazing at each other. Luna and Jenks meet their gaze. And
I love it.
The same hue of eyes. It's beautiful.
It's my favorite. I just love the sort of connection that you gave us. It really showcases how close we are.
You.
I'm
glad.
No, please.
I'm glad you're appreciating all the little details, because I did do something differently. With this portrait, I used. I'm always talking about the Muda Muda brush, but this time I've used it before, like in Tobias's, to get the higher contrast, but I used a different brush this time.
Yeah, let's talk about the different brush techniques, because I want to know, you had to do different things for Jenks's fur, but also the clothing on Luna, her hair. Yeah. So how did you kind of achieve that texture difference?
For the fabrics, I still use, like, I love my texture masks and, those tone scraping type things. Yeah. But, so I still use the Muda Muda brush there because it's so buildable, but it's a softer look. So for Jenks to have that kind of like pitch black fur, and then in order to give him any kind of contrast, the details have to be put in back with like white or gray, other kind of
highlight,
variation.
Because he's so dark of a color. Yeah.
So I felt like to get that good kind of like thick haired texture, I wanted more of an opaque brush. So this one, I'm so sorry again. They all have crazy names. This one is a very long string of like, I believe it's Japanese characters.
Gotcha.
And so I could never. But I'll try to like
link up on the Discord.
Yeah, we'll try to find it and put a picture
of them so you guys can just like go. I think they have ID numbers too, so I'll try to share that as well.
Perfect, that works. Yeah.
But it's just it's more of like an inky brush, like something more akin to like writing with a pen or something. So I was able to still get those sketchy lines if I needed it for like less opacity, but to get those blacks, it was really helpful.
Nice. So you could lighten it with the pressure, but darken it as well if you needed to.
Exactly.
That's cool. I really like that. Just because for fur, it's a little different than for doing texture on clothing, skin, or even hair, because human hair is a lot different from animal fur. And I think you've learned that in doing all the character portraits.
Totally. Because like again with like Tobias, like he was a lot of like those like soft buildable textures with the fur and the fabrics, but with this one to get those really deep contrasts with Jenks's fur and even her like face, like her eyeliner and her facial features with all the gems that she has in her headdress and everything. I went to those high contrast. The same is pretty much the same brush I used for Tobias's metalwork, his armor and stuff. So
cool.
I really like how it came out.
Nice. And I don't know about you, but for me, I've been finding some really cool brushes out there. I like to troll the free section of Clip Studio Paint every now and then and just kind of check and see what new brushes they've given away for free, just because you can find some amazing things on there. And I found this really wonderful sort of wrinkle brush for cloth. Do you use anything like that?
I haven't seen those.
No?
You'll have to show me.
Yeah.
I usually like the ones that I will download for fabrics is like ruffles.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend all day like
It is much. Oh my
at least having like a framework like going over top of it with something, but like to just pull out ruffles like from nowhere.
It's tough. It's a lot of work to get that continuous
really
lining. Yeah. And I can see why. I can see why you would get something to build off of.
But I'm not sure if you are prompted in the same way, because what I'll do if I'm like having trouble and I'm stumped for some reason, I'm just like, oh, why is this detail so frustrating to draw? Like how I don't know how to approach it necessarily. I'll go to the assets page and I'm always like, okay, someone has to have run into this problem before. There has to be something to either like get it done super fast or help me find the perspective to make it easier.
At least give you a hint as to how to solve your issue, your conundrum, right, that you're trying to get over.
And you're right that some people will either do like sales on their brushes or any assets that they've made. Or I know that they have like gold memberships, so you can get like the different currency. I know, like another hurdle, but it's something.
Clippy coins or something like that.
Yeah. Subscription.
Everything has a subscription nowadays, but you know, sometimes it's worth it depending on what kind of stuff you're doing, especially if you're doing like comic work and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I get the basic Clip Studio membership. It's like $30 a year. It's super awesome. And I still go to the free brushes just because it's really nice.
Pretty much everything you need is free.
Yeah.
Like, don't let anyone tell you that it's not worth it unless
you can
have
build
a subscription. Absolutely.
I think just having those preset brushes just makes it a little easier if you want to do more quick artwork.
Exactly. But yeah, there's so much free stuff out there that I don't know. I love the aggregate artist experience, and I really like that that's still like a thing for digital art. Yeah. So making everything a little easier. But yeah.
Gotcha. And then I also wanted to discuss, like, because throughout this whole character portrait series, they've all been black and white, but the real big thing in them is that little pop of color that you include. Like, how did you come up with that as a concept?
I was actually kind of inspired by the way you guys did your minis. Like, nice. The bases all have like
our different colors.
Yeah. So I thought it was kind of cool that like to showcase a lot of a character just by like their signature color. And I feel like that's come up with like the different uses of magic and everything that we've like lived through in the story so far. I feel like color has played like such a huge role. So that's like, I don't know, that just kind of burrowed in my head and came out.
That's cool. I like that.
So when might we be seeing some colored versions of these characters?
I'm doing that for the Discord emotes. I want those to be like
nice.
True that. I get you.
They're more chibi, so I want to have like, I don't know, they're more playful. I want to like embrace color.
You don't have hundreds of hours just to do it?
Yeah, of course.
Are you guys gonna pay me to quit my job? I know. Which, by the way, I would love to quit my job.
I think we're all hoping one day.
We're all in that boat. Yes.
Like, let's get
it done. But I'm really appreciative of those techniques. It's really nice. It helps, I think, something that to many people might seem like just a black and white sketch gets really, really drawn into with just a little pop of color. I think it's really nice.
I appreciate that. I've definitely been inspired as well by like some artists I see online are like very much that's what they do. They do black and white stuff.
Yeah.
Like
and
that's
it's beautiful.
Their niche. Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
So definitely like don't be afraid. Like if a brush really works in black and white and it's really striking, do it. Yeah. Like even for this too, like it was kind of an excuse to do like a value study.
Yeah.
So, for people like you said who don't have a lot of time, like make what you're doing, or if you're experimenting with a brush, like if you have projects that you're also doing, like make your project your study in a way. Like we all kind of like practice beforehand, but like if you're for what I was doing, like a whole series, like play it to my advantage in that way.
We build little thumbnail sketches, so to speak, and anybody who's done taken like an artwork class knows that we do this every now and then, where before you start any sort of big project, you do all these little projects that are related to kind of get you the inspiration, get the techniques working for you. That way, when you do focus on the greater project, all your techniques are there. Everything that you're looking to do is already kind of set in your mind.
You don't want to like get too far into a piece, which I've done it.
You would have all done it.
Yeah, like you get so many hours into it and you're just like, wow, I hate this.
Yeah.
But that's also the cool thing about like, you can't be afraid to share your artwork, whether it's like privately on Discord or online, because like, you know, some people are nicer about it than others, but there's always constructive criticism to be had. So I've posted my thumbnails to, or like different sketches for, like I did Chariss for you guys who had a snake character companion, and I didn't know how to work it in, so I posted little sketches onto the Discord, and it helped me really get that honest feedback I was looking for to decide, you know, which thumbnail worked best. So really cool to share stuff online, and I know you guys are. Do you want to introduce your Discord?
Well, talking about sharing artwork, absolutely. We're going to be posting the character portrait of Luna on the Couple of Nerds Discord, so be on the lookout for that. And I know you'll also be coming out with some fun social media posts that include the sketches, the time lapse. So go ahead and check that out on @Entynk at the different social media sites, but mostly on TikTok, I believe.
Mostly on TikTok, and I'm definitely in the Couple of Nerds a Discord as well. So usually on Sundays whenever we're not playing. But yeah, lots of like works in progress being posted there, so check it out. Definitely join. It's worthwhile.
I love that we can catch you streaming on the Couple of Nerds Discord. That'll be super fun on Sundays. You can always get the sneak peeks to the artwork from there as well if you want to get like little access to what they're gonna look like. And we always love hearing from you guys who are listening out there. So if you have any feedback you want to give on the artwork, share your own creations or ideas for future characters and portraits. We would love to hear from you guys. And we will also have an upcoming poll for our new art series here. Now that we've introduced all the character portraits for everyone, we're also going to be now introducing the miniatures, the painted miniatures for these characters. So there will be an upcoming poll to see who the first character will be, who will be revealed in our next sort of session series.
That's going to be dope.
Awesome.
So thank you so much, guys, for joining us today for discussing sort of Luna's portrait, incorporating the fun details, inspiration that Entynk had. We really appreciate your insights on the artwork.
Thank you always for having me on and allowing me to be part of this.
Yeah, we'd love to have you here for that little extra sort of insight into the artwork that we have. Plus, you make them, so it's awesome to have the person who makes the character portraits here to kind of talk about it, give us a little insight as to what your process is.
Yeah.
We also really appreciate those personal touches that you give the character portraits, and the kind of, I hope that it gives you a little bit of that creative freedom to give your own touches. Like you said, you added some of your own inspiration in there as well, which I think just fits in better with who we are as characters in the world.
It makes it cool.
No, I'm really appreciative of that, and just hearing the good feedback of it, where it's like, you know, and with you guys, I can expect you guys to be honest. So it's always like, I don't feel like I'm spinning my wheels, or you guys are like, you know,
just saying, oh, it's nice, it's okay,
yeah, exactly.
But not really giving any advice.
We're being nice.
Right? No. We love the character, and I think it's shown too with your live streams and stuff that other people love your character work as well.
No, it's all a very collaborative process that I'm grateful for.
Yeah. So. But thank you guys so much for listening today. We really appreciate it. If you loved hearing what you heard, please be sure to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also listen and view a bunch of the new videos that we're coming out with for these episodes on our Couple of Nerds Productions YouTube. We have a bunch of new videos coming out, as well as some fun shorts showcasing not just the artwork, but also the table and everything D&D and Couple of Nerds that we cover. You can also go to our Couple of Nerds Discord for more content, community engagement, and to view all the artwork and get little extra sneak peeks for the future. Thank you guys so much for all your support. We appreciate it, and any participation as well. We would love to hear from you, and we would love for you to join us for our next sort of episode introducing the miniature series.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
Have a good one.